Hey everyone, it is Friday, February 1st. Oh my gosh. And this is the 32nd video of the year. 32nd video of the year. I'm excited today because I am bringing you a video on how to do a Dolly Zoom. We're using a drone. Now, this is not something that is new. You can find lots of videos online that cover this exact thing and how to do it. But today I am bringing you a small trick that I haven't seen yet that I think makes this whole process a whole lot easier. And so I am going to throw it out to Field Steve here in a second. He's going to tell you where we're at, what kind of shots we're getting, and then I'm just going to bring that back in here with the shots that he gathers, and we are going to put together two quick Dolly Zooms, one with a unique structure and one with a unique sculpture. And so with that, I'm going to throw it over to Field Steve.
Hey Studio Steve, it is Steve in the field. It is the Saturday before the day you're recording that piece in the studio, so I don't know how this communication is going to work going through time and space, but yeah, so let's talk about what we're doing today. We are out here in Mount Clemens at a little park, and we are going to talk about getting a Dolly Zoom move by utilizing the Mavic Pro, if you can see that there. This is a trick that really gives your video a cool look. What we're going to use is a cool little piece of art that's here at this park, and we're going to also use this little beehive of a rock thing behind me to kind of have a focal point in our shot. Now there's a couple critical things about doing this. For those of you who have a drone, make sure you shoot in 4K, because we're going to use the editing software to create that Dolly Zoom effect, that zoom effect that looks like this. So that effect is really difficult to pull off with a camera in your hand. You have to have it on rails because you're trying to pull zoom on the camera lens as well as pulling the camera or pushing the camera. And so the cool part about doing this with a drone is all you need to do is get stable footage towards or away from something, and then do the opposite. And we'll talk about that back with Studio Steve in a second. But right now I'm gonna set up the Mavic Pro, put it in 4K, get all of my stuff dialed in, and we are going to do that today. So, all right, let's jump into this thing.
Thanks, Steve. As you guys can see, he's going to grab a couple of shots out there in the field, and we are going to bring those in here in just a second. I wish I was out there flying the drone, but it's negative degrees now.
So the drone is dialed in, and now I'm going to show you what I'm trying to capture. It's back over this way. So it is a horse. So if you can see that horse right there, right back up here, there is like a metal horse that is, it's kind of just like art. And so I am going to start with the camera right in front of the horse and just back that horse up, and then in post we're gonna do some cool trickery to get that to look like it's zooming in and out, and then we'll do the same with the structure behind me. So let's go ahead and get that done, huh? Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stand in front of this structure. I'm gonna do it again, and this way when I do the Dolly Zoom on this shot, you're gonna see my face and you'll really get a feel for how this works. Ready? Okay, so there you have it. There are the Dolly Zoom moves with the Mavic Pro using 4K resolution and moving in or out opposite of the camera with the zoom in post-production. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Back to Steve in the studio, and I enjoyed this a lot. So, all right, it's time to get inside because my hands are cold. All right, see you later. Peace.
All right, thanks, Steve. All right, so now let's take that footage that Steve has shot and let's throw that into Adobe Premiere Pro. I've already actually created one, and I'm going to show you reverse engineer how I did that, and then we're going to take the stone structure and do the same thing. So we're looking right now at the horse structure that Steve was taking some shots of. I've already color graded it, and I've already created the Dolly Zoom. So I want to show you what that effect looks like. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. So you can see it is zooming in on the horse as we're pulling the camera back and creating that very unique Dolly Zoom effect. Let's talk about how we did that. So you notice that this sequence is nested, it's green. If you're not familiar with Adobe Premiere Pro, that nesting allows me to do things when something is not the same frame size. This sequence that I'm editing in is a 1080p sequence, And the reason I did that is because in the camera we shot at 4K. Now 4K gives us more pixels, it gives us more room to work with. So in order to do this, your final product cannot be rendered in 4K. It has to be rendered in 1080 because you need that extra room outside of the frame in order to pull in or push out on your shot. So that is important to note. So here you go, this is a 1080p sequence, and this is nested so that I could put the stabilization on it after I did all of the zooming work. Once I open up that sequence, then you're gonna see the raw footage. Let me show you what we did here. Up here in the control panel, you'll see under the effects, I have motion keyframed at the beginning and keyframed at the end. Now that motion is actually zooming in, so you'll see that this scale number is getting much larger, so it's going from 50% all the way up to 149, or actually 150% at the end. And so that is what's creating that weird like effect around the horse as the horse stays in the center of the frame. In order to do that, it was very simple. Let's go ahead and grab a shot of the stone structure. Okay, so here we go. This is Field Steve. Thank you again, Field Steve, for the footage. This is the shot that he was gonna use. So let's go ahead and get our framing correct. So there we go. The zoom has started. That is long enough for me. Actually, you might go a little bit more. There we go. So I'm gonna create another 1080p timeline. I have a shortcut for that. I like to take a file like this one I'm shooting on that's in 1080p and just drag that to the sequence, and then just delete that, and then rename that sequence Stone Pyramid Dolly Zoom. So now I can take that clip and I can bring that clip right into that sequence, and now we have 4K file dropping on a 1080p sequence. So Premiere Pro is saying, hey, do you want to change the sequence to match the file, or do you want to keep the sequence and the file? So I want to keep the existing settings of everything. I don't want to change anything, and there you go. So I'm like zoomed right into my face. It is a little bright out. Steve actually overexposed just a little bit, so I'll crack the whip on him when he gets back into the studio. So the first thing we need to do is some color grading. So if you're not familiar with color grading, I'm going to click on the Lumetri scope that's up here. And Lumetri scope shows you where the colors sit on the scale. We'll talk about these scales later, but 100 to 0, you want your colors to touch top to bottom, and you'll notice it's not touching the bottom. So I'm going to go over here to the Lumetri controls, and I am going to bring more blacks into this by dragging the blacks down and touching that bottom line. I'm also going to decrease the exposure a little bit, and I'm going to pull the highlights down a little bit since it's too bright. And you'll see that I'm already starting to get some more definition. I'm gonna come down here to curves. Curves are very helpful because it adds a lot of depth and dimension in the blacks and the midtones. And so that's what I'm doing here. I'm gonna add some more of that dimension. And you can already see a big difference between the two. Let me go ahead and show you before and after. So you can see there's a lot more there, but I need to do a little more work here. I'm going to turn back on my scope. I'm going to pull down on some of that contrast maybe. Yeah. I'm going to adjust the white balance to make sure that that's good. And then I'm going to introduce a little bit more blue. Get that sky popping a little bit. And I'm going to increase the saturation just a tad. I don't want to make myself too orange. Okay. And I think that is pretty darn good. The before and after on that, we can actually just turn on and off effects here. So there you go. So that's before uncolor graded. That's after color graded. All right, so this again is going to be pulling back, and so we want to zoom in, and you'll notice that the camera kind of slides to the right. So we have to fix that. So how do we fix that? Because again, the nose has to be in the same spot at the beginning as it is in the end, and we're gonna have to zoom in. We're probably not gonna be able to get a 150 zoom. So step one, because we need the room, is we need to take this to 50 on the scale so we can scale up exactly where we're at. Now as we zoom in, remember we've got all that extra canvas, so that picture is going to be spilling out the edges as we zoom in. So as we move the picture, we're not going to expose anything on the outside edges. That's the important reason, again, why you're going to do this in 4K. So I'll turn on the keyframes for position and scale. And I'm also going to do one other thing, and this is the trick. I'm going to take a picture of this frame. So I'm going to name this SP frame 1, so stone pyramid frame 1. I'm going to go out to the folder where I have everything for this project, save it there, and I'm going to import that picture back in, SP frame 1. So I'm going to take that picture and I'm going to overlay it and decrease the opacity so you can see me through it. And as you can see right here, I'm off left to right. I am going to do two things on our keyframing. So first things first, I'm going to come back here. I'm going to come to the very beginning. I've got my keyframes there. Now I'm going to come to the end where I'm overlaid. I'm going to drop two more keyframes. Then I'm going to first zoom in. Even to, let's say, just 110%, because you've got 4K, so you've got more pixels, so you can zoom in a bit more. On the other one, I went to 150. And the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this position and I'm going to slide that image behind that top picture until my nose is directly centered where my nose is. Let's see what this looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and do play. All right, I think that looks pretty darn good. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna delete that picture. We don't need it anymore. That gave us our framing. And as you can see, just look at that, how that background just pops. Isn't that cool? It almost looks like it's three-dimensional. It's super easy to do. It takes 2 seconds with a drone while you're out flying around. The next thing that we need to do is we need to nest this because I wanna put a warp stabilizer on it because there's a little bit of shake because it was very windy that day. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on the clip and then I'm going to choose nest sequence or just nest, and that's going to nest it. I don't need to name it because I typically don't name mine, but now it's effectively a new video clip that Adobe Premiere Pro will allow me to put an effect called warp stabilization on it. The reason why I nested it, if you have an image that's a different speed or a different size, Adobe will not allow you to put a warp stabilization on it until those match up. So when you nest a file, it takes all those things and packages them together into a new clip and makes that frame size and that speed. And so everything that's happening speed and frame adjustment wise is happening behind the scenes. And so Adobe is now doing a quick analyzation of this, and then it's going to stabilize for us. And stabilize means it's going to move it around to make sure if I move left, it's going to compensate by moving opposite. So it's going to keep me centered much, much better. So let's go ahead and see how that turns out. We'll let this do its job. Okay, so it's done now. Let's go ahead and look at it now that it has done warp stabilization. All right, I like it, but I want it to be a little bit more pronounced. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna go make this not 120, but I'm gonna make it 150, meaning that I need to bring that image back in again. If you're wondering why, it's because I'm so much larger in the first frame than I am in the last frame, and I want to try to keep that scale as close to the same as I possibly can. And so now we should have a much better example. Let's see here. We might have to reanalyze that, but yeah, there we go. A little better. I think that's a little bit too much room, so let's go ahead and make this about a 5 second dolly zoom. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to crop that, and we are going to make it only 5 seconds long, because after that it gets a little bit farther out, and because of the exposure, it's not exactly ideal. So there you go. That is the Dolly Zoom effect. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching Free Edit Friday. Please click that subscribe button if you're not already subscribed. Come back for more videos. And also, I'm going to be trying to do more of this type of content because I am getting a lot of requests for it. So I have fun with it. I'm going to try and do a little bit more on the basic side of camera setup and those types of things, lighting setup, as well as how to edit all of that in post-production. All right, with that, I'm going to get to finishing finishing up the editing on this vlog. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for subscribing. And until tomorrow, have yourselves a really great day.